I don't think the issue is loads of businesses failing. I think that's part of the process. That's going to keep you in a place of fear, and that's going to not help you make good decisions. It's probably going to contribute to your business being more likely to fail if you're scared of failure because you don't make decisions. So what we've got to do right away is things. I think the key dictator between whether you're going to be a good leader or a bad leader is...
Hi, Mike. Welcome to the show today. Let's kick off by, I'm going to ask you quite direct. Why does burnout affect so many entrepreneurs?
Hi, Matt. Thank you for having me on. Good starting question. So from my experience with going through burnout myself and working with lots of other different business owners and managers and leaders, but specifically business owners, what I've realized is it's all to do with the mindset of the business owner. So you've got some strengths that make you a business owner, but if you don't put some structure around those strengths, those same strengths are what will lead to you burning out. So it's kind of where too much of a good thing can be a bad thing.
Yeah, I guess, but being an entrepreneur, you've got a goal, you're aiming for something, you're pushing forwards towards that, and that's a real benefit. It's that drive that gets us up and gets shit done as such. But the problem is, I guess, when to stop getting shit done, when to take a break, when to switch off. And I guess many of us just keep working longer hours, thinking that's going to be the way to get to whatever goal it is you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I think business owners you've got to be quite a unique combination of traits and characteristics to be a business owner, right? So you've got to be willing to delay gratification. You've got to have this high drive for freedom and creativity. So you've got this insane level of drive to just work hard and make stuff happen that most people don't have. And that enables you to take an idea from your mind and turn it into a concept and actually get a business started, which very, very few, a very small amount of the population can achieve that. So you need these kind of traits, this kind of obsessiveness, this willingness to just like sacrifice the now for a better future, to be creative and to create stuff. So those are all strengths. But like we just said, if you just do that all of the time, you never live in the now, you never look after yourself, you're constantly thinking about a better tomorrow at the expense of an unhappy today. So you've got to put some structure around how you are so that you can actually get the benefits of being entrepreneurially minded without getting all of the negatives. And I think the mistake that a lot of business owners make is we don't do that. We do all the stuff that we like doing, which gets us traction in a business, which gets us to a certain point. And then we just carry on trying to use that approach to business and life. And it ends up making us quite tired, unhappy, burnt out, miserable.
Yeah. And so talk me through where that knowledge has come from that you've got.
Before I started my first business in 2016, I'd had a pretty interesting background. So I'd served 5 years in the army. I did 2 tours of Afghanistan, attached to the special forces, high pressure environment, working 20-hour days sometimes. So I've done that. And then I've come out of the military and I've traveled for 3 years. I've worked on deep sea fishing boats off the south coast of Australia, catching sharks, waves coming over like they're going to kill you, working 10 days straight at a time, 4 hours on, 4 hours off. So I've done some pretty gnarly kind of jobs. And then I also went and lived on monasteries in Thailand and Nepal, living with monks, learning about the mind, learning about different cultures. So I had all this experience, and that kind of made me want to come back to the UK and start business. And the mindset I had was, I've got all these mindset kind of insights now. I've worked in some of the hardest environments there are known to man. Like owning a business and running a business is going to be easy for me. Like I'm more resilient than, this is what I thought. Yeah. I'm more resilient than your average kind of Joe. I know people say business is stressful, but it's not going to be for me. I'll just smash it. It can't be as difficult as being in the army or working on deep sea fishing boats. So I kind of went into it probably blissfully ignorant, maybe even a bit arrogant. And I had that business for 5 years. And it just humbled me. It did really well. It doubled in size and profit every year. It wasn't going to make me a millionaire, but it was a healthy business. It was paying me. It was giving me a lifestyle. It was changing our customers' lives. We had a great team. So it was a good business. But the way that I was approaching it made me more and more miserable from about year 2.5 onwards, until a point where just as COVID came along, I was so burnt out that I just didn't want the business anymore. Even though it was a good business, I could have sold it. I could have put work in to systemize it a bit more and scale it. But I just wanted out because I was so burnt out and depressed.
Yeah, I guess you fall out of love of something, even if it can be rescued.
Yep.
But you said, you were depressed then. So I guess actually, and you said that here around COVID times. So
Yeah.
was that a particularly tough period?
It was kind of tough and a blessing. So I was in the fitness space, and I had I always like to invest. So I went for a couple of mentorship programs, and at the time I had a specific to the industry mentor, a business guy, really good, knew his stuff, and he was all about like building a profitable model. And so I was always learning, and I was having mentorship from him. And COVID come along, and I really respected him for this. But he said to me, he goes, Mike, two things. I think this isn't your full passion. So I think there's something else that you should be doing that's going to make you more passionate. And I think you've lost the love for it. And I think the best thing you can do is use COVID as a kind of kicker to close the business down. It didn't have any debts. It was in a pretty good place. It was a good time to leave. And I really respected him for that because he was basically telling me to stop being his client. So he was giving me genuine. He was giving me genuinely like good information and pure. Like it didn't have any bias on what he was telling me. But so obviously, I mean, what he said was, it's going to be a lot of work to get this business through 1 to 2 years of COVID. And I knew it'd be 1 to 2 years. I'm ex-military. I kind of had an idea of how long this stuff was going to hang around for. And I was like, have I got the passion and the drive to grind this thing through COVID, constantly react, and then kind of be back at square one when it's post-COVID? Because obviously you're going to lose gym members, and that's what your business is built on.
Yeah.
So I knew I'd have to be kind of like starting back 10 steps back to build it up again. I was like, I don't think I want to do it. I'm tired. I'm a bit miserable. I've lost the love for it, even though I'm passionate about that industry. And that was all because of two things: how I'd approach the business. And I do think ultimately I had a higher calling or a different style of business that I wanted to pursue. But I was burnt out and I was miserable. And I think the weird thing about business owners is we get miserable about being miserable. Like we like the fact that we're motivation and that we're driven and that we're like leaders and that we get people excited. So when we're miserable, like we beat ourselves up about being miserable. So it can really start a downward spiral.
Oh, that really resonates with me. I tend to say I'm a fairly productive person, as in, I'm driven. And when I have those days where I'm in that bit of a slump and I'm not really getting much done, rather than being kind to myself, the fact of, look, just take a break, go for a walk, I actually beat myself up about it, that I'm not working at that performance that I know I can do at times.
Yeah.
And it sort of compounds then, doesn't it?
Yeah, you think it's a problem. You think, oh, why am I not optimal right now? What have I done wrong? As opposed to just making peace with the fact that, okay, I'm a human being and sometimes I'm not on the ball, and that's just part of being a human.
Yeah. And I guess that is that mindset that, we all need to have a shift. And I know there has been lots of talk in the last sort of few years. And then perhaps COVID was a little bit of a stimulus there, because lots of businesses did change because when I say it gave you an opportunity, I guess for you, there was a moment where you were like, actually, I can close this down, do something else. And it seemed a little bit more natural to everyone else, because I think we're often concerned, if I'm shutting down my business, everyone's going to think that, I've got a failing business or whatever. But actually, COVID gave it an opportunity for people to adjust without people questioning it too much.
Yeah, without people questioning it too much. But also, I think that's an important lesson to go through as a business owner. You look at the most successful business owners in the world, very, very few of them have not had business failures. Very few. And I think if I hadn't had that kick come along, I would have stayed in a business I was unhappy with because I didn't want to have this failure over my head. Whereas, like, looking back now, I'm so glad that happened, because now I'm just like, I've got such a different attitude to business now. And I'm like, well, if it doesn't work, then I'll move on to the next thing. And that's just, you probably, you got the Michael Jordan quotes, haven't you, around like, I had to miss 90 game winning shots to become the best basketballer in the world. So it's that kind of mentality. It's like, I think we have to get comfortable as business owners, if we want to be happy business owners, that things can fail and that's okay. It's not a personal reflection of us.
Yeah. Yeah, failing isn't the issue. It's sort of getting back up and, striving forward and finding something else. Exactly like you say. I think every big business owner, top business owner, has failed.
Yeah, and not internalizing it. Like if you've had a business, like I did for even after I closed that business, for 6 months, I didn't want to go out in my own town, and I hadn't ripped anybody off. Like we hadn't had members pay and then closed on them. Like everybody was in a good position. We'd done everything morally and ethically, so there was no malpractice. But I was almost like ashamed. But the reality is nobody cares. Like nobody, maybe a few people down the pub gossip, and then they're, within 2 months they're bored and gossiping about something else. But
Yeah.
we create this story in our heads that it's a way bigger than it is.
Yeah, and I think that runs through on lots of things, doesn't it? We always worry about what everyone else is thinking, but in fact, quite often they're just caught up in all of their own stuff as well. Yeah. And I think we overanalyze it. We need to get out of our own heads.
Yeah, definitely, which is not easy when you're entrepreneurially minded.
No. So you've gone through that. So what has that led into now? What's been the learning, and how has that enabled you to adapt sort of what you do?
Well, my whole business is shaped around that experience now, which wasn't by design. It kind of just happened very naturally. So I basically, when I had the gym, one of our clients at the gym did corporate workshops. They were getting lots of requests for health-based workshops. He asked me if I'd come and do some. I did a few, really enjoyed it. I was like, this is I'm having a wider impact here. It's a better business model, less overheads, all of this stuff. So I was like, it's a wider impact. I get to help more people. I get to have a more holistic impact on people's lives as opposed to just fitness. And it's a better business. So I knew I wanted to kind of move towards that space and be more of a thought leader and a knowledge, like packaged products and knowledge expert per se, or I don't like saying that, but like packaging knowledge. That's what I wanted to go into. And so I closed the gym and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it took me about 3 to 4 months to just have any energy. I had a bit of cash in the bank from basically selling the assets of the business, but not a lot, but enough to kind of give me a little bit of a safety net. So I was kind of thinking about what I was doing, and I had this thought going through my head, and the thought was, should I get a job? I know every entrepreneur in the world's had that thought. Why am I doing this? Why am I working this hard, dealing with all this stress when I could have a job that gives me 4 weeks paid holiday? So we've all had that thought. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm burnt out, I'm tired. Do I get a job? And the kind of thought process was, I like being happy. I like kind of inspiring people. It's one of my things. I've always kind of had a good attitude and kind of good around people. And I like to be fit and healthy and look after myself and live a decent lifestyle. And I was like, but when I've owned this business, I've kind of thrown a lot of that away at the expense of the business. So it made me kind of fall out of alignment with my core values. And I don't want to do that again. So I was like, I don't know if I want to do that to myself again. And then I thought about a job, and then I really thought about it. I was like, but one of my main core values is freedom and passion, right? So like, look after your freedom and pursue the things that you're most passionate about. So I was kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, because I was like, well, I don't want to own a business again and make myself miserable, but I also don't want to have a job because that's just not aligned to who I am. And I know that within 3 to 6 months, I'm going to be fed up and bored. So I was going through this process, and I was like, well, I've only got one option really. I need to own a business and figure out how to do that whilst being happy.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I've got to do. I've got to figure out, like, what did I do wrong in my previous business? How do I avoid doing that again? What are the best business owners, like the happiest business owners? What are they doing? Like the really inspirational business owners that are happy, they've got balance, they're making it look easy, they're going on holiday, they're making decent money. Like, what are they doing? And I need to try and learn from that, and then give myself the systems, support, and structure that's going to enable me to own a business and be happy, basically. And so I started building stuff, building guides and like thinking about, why did I do that? Well, I'm very like methodical. Why did I do that? What mistakes did I make? How could I prevent that from happening again? So I started writing about it. I started building tools. I spent a lot of money with business mentors and business experts and psychologists and counselors. So I was like really trying to figure out like, what was going on physically, mentally, systematically with the business, strategically. And I just started like pulling all of this stuff together and posting about it online. And that essentially founded the business that we've got now. So we now work with business owners and their teams, but we also do like management and leadership training in corporates. And it's all based around these models that I was building to help me not be miserable pursuing what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I guess one of my questions is, you had a career in the military, and I've spoken to a few people from the military, and, sadly, some people come out and it's really affected them, and actually they're sort of, I guess their life does go a bit downhill. But for many, they've got a really good sort of mindset to be able to run and grow a business. And is that sort of methodical thinking, the discipline, the adapting and overcoming problems? Because when you're in the military, you have to do that on the fly. Do you think that the military sort of brought something else out in you, or did it train you for that? Or, did you already have it and the military highlighted it, or where do you think that came from?
So I don't know if it's a case that the military kind of brings out that determination, systematic thinking side of people, or that people have that tendency or attracted to the military.
Yeah.
So it's probably a bit of both, I guess. I had some really I was very fortunate. I got some really unique experience. Got to go and work with the special forces like straight away. So I've got to see the creme de la creme of a well organized team and high impact leadership. So yeah, I think it has shaped me. It gave me some cons as well. I think a lot of people come out of the military and they really struggle with things like business because you're so institutionalized and everything's got to be perfect in the military. And if it's not, there's a risk of death. So it's got its benefits to being taught to learning that kind of way of thinking. But also, like you'll know, if you try and run a business as a perfectionist, you ain't getting anywhere, and you're going to be very stressed. So there's some stuff that's very good, like the discipline, the focus, the resilience, even things like running how to learn a team. Like I still remember the core values of the army. They drilled into you, and those are things that I really respect and admire about the military. There's a lot of things I didn't like and respect. I also saw the worst of leadership in the army. Like you go from working with the special forces, where you've got really driven, high impact team working with a really driven, high impact leader, and it's all about respect. And then you go into the mainstream army, and it's all about authority. It's not about respect. It's about dictatorship, essentially. So you see the best and the worst of leadership in the military. So definitely, it's helped me. I think in the way that I think and run business. I think I probably had a lot of that within me anyway, as most of us do.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's also some negatives you've got to overcome, like being too institutionalized, being too much of a perfectionist. So it's kind of a balance. It's probably not a very clear-cut answer for you there. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. It's just interesting, isn't it? Yeah, and someone who hasn't been in the military but has spoken to people who have come out and set up businesses. It's the way, I guess, using the experiences to form what it is you're doing next. And I guess that part, you say you saw the best of leadership and some of the worst. Actually, that enables you to actually see what a good leader is. Because if you've only ever experienced the bad, you don't necessarily know what the good is. You've got to experience and see it to help differentiate.
Yeah, so I probably experienced one of the best leaders I've ever come across in my life. So he was a major in the Special Boat Service. I really admired him and looked up to him. And then after that first 2-year post, I went back into mainstream army, and I had one of the worst leaders. I don't even like calling him a leader. Dictators that I've ever experienced, ever kind of come into contact with in my life. So I've kind of got like the best. I've got like what I want to be like myself and what I want to help other people be like, and then also what's bad. So I've got like a really good benchmark of what's good and a really good benchmark of what's bad. And actually, a lot of what we talk about is based on those two things. Like, this is bad, this is good. Because I think it's good to know what the bad is as well, so that we can learn how to
and identify it.
Yeah. And why does that happen? Why are people bad leaders? Well, what's the reasons for that? And we can look into that, as opposed to just saying don't do it. We can look at like the underlying causes.
So what are the characteristics of a good leader?
So I think the key, so there's a couple of things. I think the key dictator between whether you're going to be a good leader or a bad leader is self-confidence. So if you're lacking in confidence and you haven't got the humility to accept and work on that, you're probably going to be a bad leader. You're going to micromanage. You're going to display behaviors that aren't helpful to you or to your team. So having self-confidence and self-belief really changes the way that you lead. But obviously it's a bit of a paradox, because if you haven't got it, you need to work on it. I think being moral and genuinely wanting the right thing, the greater good. So if you're all about you, you're going to be an arsehole. If you're all about the purpose and the team and like the whole thing, thinking holistically, you're going to be a good leader. So it's kind of like being vision driven and making sure that you're there for more than just yourself. Or even if, because we're all selfish. Like, we like to say we're not, but we are. Otherwise we'd be dead. Like, we have to be selfish to an extent. Yeah. And when people say, oh no, I'm not, you are. Of course you are. And so am I. Because if we weren't selfish, we would equally share all of our resources around the world, and we'd give we distribute our wealth equally. It doesn't work. So we are to an extent selfish. So I think a good leader does think about themselves, but they also think about the bigger picture and the why of what they're doing and the team. And they understand that for anything to be effective long term, it's an ecosystem. So we talk about the core four at Better Happy. We're like, for a business to work, there's four different groups that need to be in a win-win situation. Otherwise, the business will not feel fun and probably won't last.
Okay, can you go through those four?
Yeah, so I should probably just summarize what I said there. So self-confidence, thinking holistically about win-win situations and being vision-driven. So that's what I would say are the three key things. And then the core four, which is like the ecosystem of any team or especially business, is you've got these four different groups and they all need to work together. And I like to picture on a square. And if all of them are in a win-win situation, the business will feel enjoyable. It will continue to grow. If one of them isn't, it will either start to feel like a struggle, stagnate, or completely collapse. So you've got the team. So they put stuff in and they want stuff out.
Yep.
You've got your clients. So they put stuff in and they want stuff out.
Yep.
So that they put in money, right? And they expect a service or product that they value of equal to or more than the money they put in. You've got, and then, so most of us will think about those two things. But what we don't think about a lot of the time is you've got the business and the bank account. That's got to be happy.
Yeah.
Right. That's got to be, so that gives you structure. It gives you the ability to trade. It gives you legality, but it also expects taxes and profits and cash. And then we've also got one that gets overlooked most of the time, the owner.
Yeah.
So what happens a lot of the time, whenever I go to a business, like we'll look at those four and we'll be like, okay, have we got a win-win situation for all of these? Are we making enough money? Yes or no? Okay. And then we're like, okay, are the customers happy? Yes or no? Are your team happy? Yes or no? Are you happy? Yes or no? And we look at all four of those things, be like, what needs to be true for all four of them to be happy? What typically happens with owners, for example, is your motivations change as your business goes on. So what made you happy at the start of your business won't make you happy 3 to 5 years into your business, but we don't think about that. And then we end up in this situation where we're unhappy and we're like, well, we become like the protective parent. We're like, well, I've got to care for the team and I've got to make sure that the business is making money. And we forget ourselves. You're like, well, that can't last very long because it's your business. So a good leader thinks about all four.
Yeah. And many of us do. Certainly I've been completely guilty of that in the past, but exactly what you said there, my goal was really to look after the team, look after my clients, look after the money coming into the bank. And that's what I got up in the morning to do.
Yep.
But in fact, it was incredibly draining on me. And it was me that suffered from that.
I think it's a combination of British culture, but not just British culture and basic human psychology. So when we were hunter-gatherers, it made sense for us to want to fit into the tribe and to not come across as arrogant or selfish. Because if we got kicked out of the tribe, we were dead. Basically, you had to be in a community to survive in the olden times.
Yeah.
So we've got this kind of like humility within us, and this kind of resistance to do anything that would be seen as arrogant or selfish. Now what that can, and then you add British culture to that, where we're very polite and the way we are, and even our schooling systems, we're taught it's not about, don't think about yourself, don't look after your health. If you think about it, kids get homework from the age of 4. They do about 2 hours of PE a week, so it's being drilled into us from a young age that health and looking after yourself is a low value activity. Work is the holy grail that's going to give you what you need, and you should take home. Yeah. So you combine those two things together, and what happens is you get a lot of business owners, and I was one, and so were, or are you, Matt? So where we feel guilty about thinking about what we want from our businesses, which is absolutely crazy because a business is an investment of your time, your money, and your stress, and if it doesn't pay you back what you need from it, you're going to get resentful of it. And if you get resentful of it, you'll start feeling tired. You'll start, instead of waking up excited for your business, you're going to start waking up thinking, oh, this thing is a burden. Oh, I've got to go and do this. I'm not excited for it anymore. Why am I doing this and not just having a job? Or look at those people over there. And then that's a downward spiral, because then you can't grow your business to what it needs to be to create the long-term win-win. So you've got to, as a good leader, you've got to think about yourself, but the others as well.
Yeah. That's really interesting. You mentioned about the sort of school system there. I mean, I've got two young children, both at primary.
Mm.
And I'm really pleased. Yeah, I go to sports day, and it's still fairly competitive. We did go through a period where almost we were taking out the competition from sport. Everyone
Yeah.
had to win, yet we were still doing all the academic stuff and testing. And it was sort of like saying it's just important that you're good at exams. Sport doesn't matter. It's just taking part.
Yeah.
And it is. Maybe we've switched around that it's all about the hard work and less about the physical side and looking after yourself.
Yeah. I think well, I don't think, our education system's got a lot of issues, and um, it's going to take, I don't know who it was that said it. Maybe it was Elon Musk or somebody else, but they were like, it's going to be easier to get a man on Mars than it is to fix the education system, because it's such a complex beast. And, the education system was built for the Industrial Revolution to create people to create reliable workers that don't ask too many questions. And I think even a lot of, I used to have a lot of teachers as clients, and even they know that the system's not great, and it's, putting the emphasis on the wrong thing. So yeah, I think if you've got kids, having some awareness around that, so you can make sure that you help them think differently to what school's telling them to think, could be really helpful. I mean, I came out of school thinking I was thick and didn't have any value to add to the world, and it took me years to kind of start building up my self-confidence to go and to figure out that I have actually got tons of value and that I can do stuff with that.
Yeah, there definitely is that thing that the school system is so big, and it's got some fantastic people in it. I know many teachers, members of my family are teachers, and they're doing some great work, but they're just a very small part within this massive system that actually probably isn't set up right for the current period. And I guess one issue, I had a past guest say that we can't completely take away one of the aims of school is actually childcare. Because actually, for being there between 9 and 3:30 enables people to go to work. So even though actually part of me says that, putting kids, certainly teenagers, in a really strict environment, if you sit here in a class of 30 and you do this, probably isn't best for them. Equally, for parents, we do look for childcare to enable us to do the work, and therefore we pay taxes. And it's just, such a massive system. I mean, I don't think I'm certainly not. Maybe it's fair to say neither of us are probably the right person to completely change the school system because we don't understand it enough. But it equally is, an issue.
Yeah, it's a complex beast. I'm certainly not the intelligent or knowledgeable enough to fix it. But I think it's not bad. It's just not what it needs to be. I used to live in Nepal, where all of the adverts around like Kathmandu and around the cities is this much money to get your kid into education, because the education's so poor out there, and like it's a prestigious thing to get your kid into some education, and 2 generations of families will save up to send one kid to school. So it's also pretty good. Like we've got we're very lucky to be born into a wealthy country with established systems, even though a lot of them need fixing, but all systems are corrupt in some form or another, or broken. So yeah, there's loads to fix there, but I think also it's like, let's not just drill down on what's bad about it. I think the key is, and we talk to business owners about this, let's not just focus on what we don't want, let's focus on what we do want. So there's some really good books out there. Dan Priestley and Jodie Cook wrote a book, How to Raise Entrepreneurial Kids. There's the old book that I've read about half of, about the school called Summerhill, where they basically just don't put any discipline on the kids. They're like, you can do what you want. And they have like really naughty kids there. And these kids become like, most of them end up being really good and interested in education. Adam Grant, Hidden Potential, he talks about some of the Scandinavian schools and how they go about it there. And I remember one of the key things from that was like the kids in their first 2 or 3 years of school aren't made to do any subjects. They're just allowed to do what they want in school. If they want to learn, they can learn. If they want to play, they can play. And their theory is the best thing you can do for a kid for their education early on is create a positive relationship with education. So if you're getting kids when they're really young, like a kid like me, for example, who's probably ADHD and doesn't like sitting still for too long, unless we're talking about something like this.
Yeah.
You sit me in school and I'm like, this is rubbish. I just want to jump out the windows and go and do sports or be talking to people. I don't want to be sat listening. So they focus on just make the kid love school. Like just make them enjoy school for the first 3 years, and they've got a positive relationship with school and then an education. So there's answers out there, but yeah, it's a complex beast.
Yeah. But it does, set so many of us up for, future life. Exactly like you said, you came out of school maybe thinking, I, I'm silly, I'm stupid, I don't know what to do, I haven't achieved in this, what am I going to do in life? And actually,
Yeah,
as an adult, one of our goals is to continue learning, continue
yeah,
sort of improving, our knowledge and finding what we're good at. Because I do genuinely believe everyone is good at something.
yeah,
There's
100%.
certain things I can't do,
Yeah,
but equally there's other things I'm really good at. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just finding what that is and then being able to link that with some sort of purpose. It's all right being good at something, but if you don't enjoy it, actually it probably still isn't quite the right thing. You need to find that blend in between the two and something that people are going to pay for you.
Yeah, yeah, basically, yeah, exactly. I did a really good. There's lots of different things, like ikigai and all of this stuff,
Yeah.
but actually, probably the best I did was the one that stuck me the most. Is I did some training with Dan Priestley on his startup program, and he's just got this simple three circles that overlap each other, and he's like, for you to have a business that, for you to find your business, the business that's ideal for you, and he has the same mentality as you. Like could be a everybody's got value. Everybody could
Yeah.
be have a good business. And he has passion, problem, and profit. So he's like, are you passionate about it? Is it solving a problem? Can people pay to fix it? He's like, if you can find that the crossover between the three, you're going to be in a good place. I think what happens with a lot of us is we might be like deep in the passion one, but we're not being clear about the profits and the problem. So we're like, well, I'm
Yeah.
really passionate about this. You're like, well, that's great, but can you make money from it? And is it solving a problem? So it's kind of finding the crossover between those three.
Yeah, completely. I've recently sort of, it's become really abundant to me that I don't have to monetize every one of my hobbies.
Yeah.
Because, just keep it as something you enjoy. If you're
Yeah.
passionate about it, then just do it. But luckily, some of my hobbies do come into sort of the work that I do. But it is finding that bit between what's fully your passion and where's there enough of it that someone's going to pay you to fix a problem that they've got.
Yeah, exactly. And is there a big enough group of people that have got that problem, that have got the money to spend to fix it and want it fixed? It's just
Yeah.
fine. Yeah, and I think it's that's more startup stuff, isn't it? But that's a journey of just figuring out, what do I enjoy? What can I make money from? What's genuinely going to help people? And when you find that magic spot, you're kind of like, well, this is brilliant. But
Yeah.
it takes a few years to become an overnight success, doesn't it?
It certainly does, yeah. I mean, you're in a position now where obviously you're a few years into this change. What's your aim over the next 5 years? What impact do you want to have on businesses, and how do you see yourself, doing that, and what the businesses are going to get out of it?
So we've got this kind of mission of helping transform the lives of 10,000 business owners and helping them be happy, right? So I want to redefine what entrepreneurial success means. And I think at the moment, entrepreneurial success generally in people's minds is about how much money have you made? How big's your business? Have you had an exit? And it's like, well, if you've done that, you're doing really well. And I think there's and those things are important, right? So I don't think we should stop talking about those, because if you want to play the game of business, you've got to get focused on making money and ideally building a business that you can sell, right? Because that's probably the ultimate kind of business win, selling a business, right? But what I want to do is redefine it so that it's not just that's focused on, but also enjoying the journey and being healthy and inspiring people long term, and not doing that at the expense of your relationships and your health and your lifestyle. So that's what I want to do. I want to be like the guy, or one of the guys, that in 5 to 10 years is kind of referenced as helping change the approach towards business, but in a way that led to better business results, because we have more entrepreneurs that aren't burning out, that are going for longer, that have got more energy, more vitality. So they're getting better results, because 80% of UK businesses that get listed for sale don't sell.
No.
And it's something like 1 in 5 business owners are daily thinking about quitting their business because they're tired or stressed and they've lost their motivation. I think it's 49% of business owners and these are obviously all from different studies, I don't know every business owner in the world, but 49% of business owners will actively state that their business is negatively impacting their physical and or mental health. And you're like, well, there's a problem there. Like something is fundamentally wrong. And entrepreneurs are some of the most passionate, driven people, and we need them. So we need to make sure that they're not making themselves miserable in the pursuit of their passion.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a huge number of businesses that fail prior to even getting to that stage where could it sell?
Yeah.
And quite often, it is that maybe business owners underestimate how hard it is, but not having the mindset to be able to deal with those problems. Because actually they think, oh, I'm going to start a business, earn loads of money, and it's going to be brilliant. And actually when things don't go right in that first year, actually it is really hard. But actually if it was repositioned slightly, perhaps people would know the right things to do and not fall into some of those early traps. And I
Well,
guess,
yeah and no. So I'd actually, to an extent, I disagree with that, because to an
okay.
extent, I don't think the issue is loads of businesses failing. I think that's part of the process. It's like,
Yeah, okay.
that's not the
Yeah.
issue. I think I wouldn't want it to be that less businesses fail. Oh, great, great if they do. But I think the issue is the state of the owners, right? So
Hmm.
if your business needs to fail, let your business fail, but be healthy, be happy, and move on to your next one. So I'd really want, but I do agree that if we help owners with mindset and health, less businesses would fail, or they'd fail quicker and move on to the next successful one. Because
Actually,
part of,
that's maybe one of the key parts. Actually, failing quicker is a
just get on
is
with
a
it, just
better
let it
thing.
go. Like,
Yeah.
emotion, be comfortable. I think that's probably one of the first trainings you should do when you get into business. Right, how are you going to handle it if it fails? What? Because I remember what I was like. It won't fail. Like, it's a really good idea, and it
Yeah.
can help everybody. So it's not going to fail, is it? Well, it might, and actually statistically, it probably will. So how are you going to handle that? And if somebody had drilled me on those questions, I'd have been like, I'll be really embarrassed and really ashamed. Like,
Mm.
well, we got to work on that, because that's going to keep you. That's going to keep you in a place of fear, and that's going to not help you make good decisions. It's probably going to contribute to your business being more likely to fail if you're scared of failure because you don't make decisions. So what we got to do right away is get you comfortable with the fact that this business might fail, and that's okay.
Yeah. That's a really good insight, actually. Yeah, just understanding that, and you will find something that's going to work. You're going to love it. But if you hang on to the
It's
thing that
got to be
isn't,
this first one, and failure isn't acceptable. You
yeah,
okay, mate? I mean, you got like the Andrew Tate mentality where it's like, I will not fail, so that's how I believe, and I know. And you're like, well, okay, but there's a line between confidence and misguided arrogance, and
yeah,
statistically, most of us business owners, especially new business owners, should accept there's a fairly high percentage chance this business will fail, and I need to be okay with that.
yeah. Yeah, because otherwise, you struggled in year one. Actually, if you take that to year three, you're not really earning enough to cover. You're getting yourself in a bit of debt. You're working all sorts of hours. Actually, you should have let it go much earlier and, tried something else.
Well, my first business, we made all the mistakes. So we set the pricing up based on what the average was across the other gyms. Terrible
Yeah.
idea. Right? So we did that. We didn't really have a business plan other than covering the bills. We tried to keep it as cheap as possible for the members, thinking that we were doing them a favor. So basically, like, through that experience, like 2 to 3 years in, it was like, no, this whole thing needs to be overhauled. Like, we want to provide what we do, provide a very high level of service. We've got full-time coaches. We're not just we were on an industrial estate, but not just like some dirty gym where the staff just are like volunteers turning up in their shorts and flip-flops. It was a really professional service, and we had professional clientele. So there was a mismatch between the service we were providing and what we were pricing, but it had to change. Like, there was no question about it. It's like, if you want to carry on providing this level of service and pay the staff what they need to get paid, deliver the service that your clients genuinely want, have the upkeep the level of facility that they want, have a happy owner, you got to charge more. And we basically went from charging £80 a month with discounts, so we'd cheapen that as our membership, to our lowest price membership being £150 a month and our top being £400. So that's a very different business. And I remember one of the mentors saying to me at the time, he's like, sometimes the best thing you can do is just close it down and start it again under a different brand. And we didn't, but it was very stressful, because paying £150 a month for a gym membership, a lot of people are going to go, that's what expensive. Well, it is compared to Pure Gym,
Yeah.
or maybe it is compared to David Lloyd's, but we're not appealing to Pure Gym members. We're appealing to David Lloyd's members who are spending all that money and not getting results. So they're spending £100 a month on their gym membership, and they're not getting results, and they're spending £50 a week on PT. So they're actually spending £400 a month. We're giving them that service for £150. So But the problem is we started at 80. So we had all these members that were getting this really high level of service and they'd price anchored it on 80. So it was hard work to then say to them, look, we're doing it to you for you way too cheap. So we basically, over a 4-week period, just said, look, for this business it was horrible. It was so stressful. But we basically just had to say to our members, look, we're not charging right to provide the service that we are. It's a lesson I've learned. It's my mistake. In 4 weeks, our memberships are going from £80 a month to £150 plus. And it's stressful. And the reality was there. Probably would have been easy to just close it and say, we're rebranding it. We're starting again. Fancier signs. This is what we price. This is what we package. Because if they'd been paying that from the start, they wouldn't have minded.
No.
So sometimes, I remember the mentor said, sometimes it's just easier to close it down, start again.
Yeah, having that brand value, what people are prepared to pay, based on where they value and see your brand positioning, I guess, knowing that actually sometimes mistakes are going to take you, you were lucky maybe you were able to do it, even though it was stressful. But for a lot of people, actually, they're still hanging around with some of the low paid clients while still trying to appeal to the high end. And it actually becomes very, very messy.
Yeah, and I remember, this is probably a bit of a tangent from our conversation, but I do remember one of the mentors that we had at the time saying, well, even if you lose 20% of your members, you're still going to be better off because you're charging more. And what happened was we had about, I think when we put those prices up, we had about, we was around the 100 to 120 member point, and we'd lost about 20.
Yeah.
And I think probably 50 to 70% of them came back because they went and tried other places and realized how good they had it. So
yeah,
just got to charge what you're worth. But that's, that's a lesson in most business. A lot of younger business owners, not as in biologically, but in their business journey, have to go through.
Yeah, definitely. Mike, it's been brilliant to chat to you today. Just to finish off, what one tip would you give someone who's looking to go into leadership or perhaps, start a business themselves? What do you think they need to know? What would be one key takeaway if they fast forward this podcast and just listen to the last 5 minutes? What could be a takeaway you could give them?
Especially for business, but it's the same for leadership. Be sensibly selfish from day one. So don't be embarrassed or too humble to say, what has this business got to do to make me happy? What kind of lifestyle it's got to give me? What money has it got to pay me? What work do I want to do? What work don't I want to do? Ask that question from day one and then ask it every 12 weeks, because that will give you the most accurate business strategy and plan you could ever dream of. And if you just rely on asking other people, you're going to be constantly bouncing around ideas. So just be clear on what you want, and the right path will present itself.
Mike, that's fantastic advice. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a fantastic conversation. And
thanks for having me on.
Wish you all the best with your future business.
Cheers, Matt. You too.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Balanced Ambition podcast. I genuinely hope the stories inspire you as much as they inspire me. If you found value in today's conversation, please share it with a friend. And remember, by subscribing, you won't miss an episode, and it would truly mean the world to me. Stay balanced, and I'll see you next time.